Well, good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here again at Unity of Payson. My name is Reverend Joanne, and this morning we will be looking at cultivating a resilient spirit. I hope you have been enjoying your exploration of this book, The Gifts of Imperfection. I have enjoyed reading it along with you, so I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak to a couple chapters throughout your study. A number of interesting things happened, although, when I was assigned my chapter about resiliency and being resilient and empowering people to become resilient. I, years ago, had the opportunity to focus on resiliency. As Reverend Marvin said about me, I have been serving for years in youth and family ministry across the Unity movement, and there was a time where, focusing on teen ministry, I had the opportunity to work with high school teens in Belen, New Mexico, where I lived. The school psychologist and myself ran an after-school program called the Belen Natural Helpers. And we supported teens who volunteered to support their peers through challenges. It's like creating a secular chaplain program because we couldn't talk about God. It was a public school. So we empowered them in other ways to overcome some of the challenges that they had. Challenges for a high school student would include school, grades, parents, mostly parents, relationships, those are critical at the teen years, and also drugs, alcohol, dependency, pregnancy, and suicide. Not just the typical run-of-the-mill stuff. It was heavy duty from time to time. So it was unfortunate that our funding only lasted 2 years, and I really applaud these students for becoming resilient themselves and stepping up to support their peers in high school with the challenges that they faced. So even though I had spent some time focusing on resiliency in the high school and also in the community with other professionals that worked in health and mental health issues, when I got my assigned chapter, resiliency, I said, oh my God, what do I know about being resilient and empowering others to be resilient? And I just want to share that truth with you because throughout this process of recognizing the gift within our perceived imperfections, I too fall prey to those negative, chattery thoughts that are not always my friends. Do you too have the monkeys within your mind that pop up from time to time to tell you everything that you should know about yourself? Yeah, well, I think all of us have that. So I trust I'm not alone with having a group of chattering monkeys to support my ongoing journey. And I won't ask for a show of hands. So I don't want to put you on the spot in that way. So what I loved about this book is there's a quote that Brene Brown shares, which is, resilience is often a slow unfolding of understanding. Resilience is often a slow unfolding of understanding. And so what is it that we are trying to get an understanding of? It's ourselves, of course. We're the ones having the journey. We're the ones having the experience. And if we don't understand ourselves at multiple levels of being, there are going to be more tricky challenges and more monkeys in our experience than we would care to have. So as we choose to understand ourselves, what we do, what we think, how we feel, the situations we create to grow through, I'm sure you've had quite a number of growing experiences in your journey so far. And of course, there's that pesky topic of error thinking. In Unity, we talk a lot about error thinking, and we're good at it. In the human condition, we're good at error thinking. And so it's our journey to understand ourselves and our mind so that we can have more positive thoughts and create a more positive experience for ourselves. This book will help us do that on a number of ways. So let's dive in. She says, Brené Brown, that it's important to understand our vulnerabilities. Doesn't that sound exciting? Doesn't that just want to make you dive into the ice cold water in the pool? No, I didn't think so. But here we are studying vulnerability. And so it's important for us to, A, recognize that we all have vulnerabilities and they're just part of life, and to name them. Public speaking, for one, makes a lot of people vulnerable. It is by all means not an easy thing. This was a learned skill for me. Had you seen me 20 years ago, I would be up here going blah, 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 blah. So, truth be told, there you have it. And many people have that experience. So we have to name our vulnerability. We need to talk about it. We need to own the story of our experience and then be brave to share that story. Along that way, it's important that we love ourselves in the process. Now, a critical thing to loving ourselves is releasing shame. There is no shame in the experience of our journey. That's a judgment that someone gave to us. Thank you very much. I choose not to accept it. So through these steps, we come to learn about ourselves. And we come to grasp that shame is nothing more than self-hatred about my experience. Got it? Self-hatred about my experience. It's a shame that we take on and we do it to ourselves. People have probably told us that we're not good enough in some way, and God forbid we bought onto it. And so we can turn the tides by recognizing that our story is just a story. There are many children's stories, there are many adult stories, and they're just stories. So the real gift in sharing our own personal story is to know for yourself and to invite others to know that they're not alone. I have pieces of my story that might parallel pieces of your story. You have items in your storyline that I could have also experienced. That shared commonality of our story helps us to release the shame, to love ourselves, to love one another. So our goal is not to let go of the vulnerability, but to embrace it and to feel the feelings that it gives to us and to love ourselves in the process. I always come back to loving ourselves in the process. Another critical point that the author shares is that our imperfections are not our inadequacies. They're not inadequacies. This is good to know, because imperfection is what makes these flowers look so beautiful. And the snowflakes, not any snowflake is like another snowflake, and they're all beautiful, just like people. We're all created by the Creator, unique, divine individuals. We wouldn't want it any other way, truly. So resilience is the ability to overcome a negative situation. In your life, you've overcome countless negative situations. You probably just don't pat yourself on the back so much for it, and you should. So as we move through stress and trauma and situations that give us gray hair, or not so much for our younger crowd, but they have stress in their own way, we embrace those situations, because as we've heard countless times, what's that saying? if it doesn't kill us, it'll make us stronger. And, you know, oddly enough, there's a little bit of truth to that. Not that I like the way that that statement sounds. But as we move through each of those experiences, we gain the tools of resiliency. Whoops. There you go. I love when I see a plant coming up through a crack in the sidewalk because, you know, Mother Earth will win. And being a plant lover, I am excited when a flower pops up through a place that you know that it shouldn't really be able to do that, but it does. The energy of the life force of the universe just pushes forth. And that same energy is in each of us, pushing forth. And that's the tools of resiliency. Researchers have been looking to figure out what makes the plants, the animals, so resilient to all the change that is taking place in the environment. And so we just know that that life force will win at every level. Everyone faces adversity in their lifetime, and so Brene Brown brings to note a few aspects about what it is to be a resilient individual. She notes that cultivating hope, practicing critical awareness, and letting go of numbing behaviors and taking the edge off being vulnerable in discomfort and pain are keys to what she believes helps to make us resilient. I would personally add to that list making a conscious survival decision. Early on, I know that I made a conscious choice as a young person to find a better way to live than the environment and experience that I was born into. I knew that I had to do that for the pure reason of my soul was not being fed. And I just knew, I don't know how I knew, but I knew that I had to find a different way to be. And so let's look at some of how these things create resiliency. Cultivating hope. Hope is not an emotion. It's a way of thinking, a way of feeling, a way of behaving in the world. We in Unity are probably known for cultivating hope. Some others may call us very Pollyanna-ish in our way of thinking and behaving, always looking for the good, always looking for the positive. And you know what? I like Pollyanna. So I choose to look for the good in the world. Having overcome negative thinking and using positive thoughts to either spiral up or spiral down, my choice is to spiral up. I can do that with my thinking, with my choices and behavior. So hope is a combination of choosing to look for the good and to set goals, to have tenacity and perseverance. Everyone who continues along on the same process with this goal in mind will persevere regardless of circumstances in the outer. Believing in ourselves and having encouragement from others in a spiritual community such as this one empowers us to hold on to that hope. When I was a young person and I didn't really have a true spiritual path, at least I believed that I could do anything I set my mind to. Some of you may recall a talk that I did a few months back that I shared with you that my sneaky grandmother left Unity brochures laying around the house. And I'm so grateful that she did. As a middle school student, I thought she was a little weird, but now, as an adult, having embodied so many of those positive thoughts and empowering behaviors, I'm so grateful that she had the foresight to do that. Also, as a Girl Scout in my rearing years, that program gave me a number of life skills so that I had the tools to care for myself and to become self-sufficient, reliant, and more resilient. It took a lot of time and effort to follow the steps of all those requirements for all those merit badges. It was a wonderful program. It taught me perseverance to achieve the goals that I set out for. So growing up in the environment that I was, I may have been powerless about certain things due to my size, my age, the fact that I wasn't yet 18. All of those things gave me situations to become resilient for. But when I choose to believe that I can do anything that I put my mind to, there's an internal energy that bursts forth. My grandmother knew what she was up to. And knowing that that energy within me would propel me forward, I didn't know that that would sustain me throughout the years, but I see now in retrospect that it has. So all of us have that energy that propels. It's called the divine spark. It's called the Christ consciousness in our philosophy. Each and every one of us has that energy within. The next topic she talks about in her book is called Practicing Critical Awareness, having what she calls a reality check. Have you ever had a reality check? Reality checks are critical to our experience. In this image, who is the angel and who is the devil? Life is not always as it appears. We are very quick to judge. We think we know everything, especially, well, I won't go there. I have the youngest person sitting right in front of me. When I was younger, I thought I knew everything. I was so worldly as a middle school, high school student. And so when we come to terms with our judgments by the outer and the truth of the inner, we can see that our 12th power of judgment, our spiritual discernment, can be put to use so that in a situation like this, we can clearly see who is the angel and who is the devil. Right thinking is the meaning of the word righteousness. It's putting our thinking in alignment with the one mind, the God mind. So I invite you to live a righteous life. I define righteous and right life as a life that benefits all of us. It benefits myself and you and the plants and the animals and the planet as a whole to grow, evolve, and be sustaining. Situations in our lives will ask us to do those critical inquiry questions in our situations, not just something like this. But our life situations, our day-to-day experiences, we will have to ask ourselves, is this fiction or is this fantasy? Is this situation, this choice that I have to make, is it in alignment with the highest and best for my mind, for my body, for my spirit? Does it empower me and those I care about to live a better life or to be a kinder person? Does it make me feel bad in some way? How those answers are portrayed will help you make a righteous choice, a right choice for yourself and everyone involved. It's good to have a reality check. Gentle is best, but sometimes not so gentle is okay too. Go for the long term, the restorative answers that your soul wants when you're answering those questions. I love this one. Letting go of numbing behaviors, taking the edge off vulnerability, discomfort, and pain. Now, we have the Super Bowl coming soon, and I don't want anyone to perceive that, this is not healthy behavior on an occasion. However, when it's an everyday occurrence that this is your experience, are you numbing your life? Are you lessening the pain that you face by taking the edge off with other substances? It's a little bit different taking the edge off and obliterating the pain and experience that you're having at 100% or more. that we call addiction. Addiction is a pattern of chronic behavior of numbing as a coping mechanism. The difference is people who are working to have a wholehearted life, as Brené Brown speaks to, are aware of the possible dangers of numbing. And they're having done a few reality checks, they come to a place where they've developed the ability to choose. Now, I know for myself, I've developed that ability mostly by trial and error. Is anyone else out there with me? Yes, all of us.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect. Yeah, I'm going to try this and see what the experience is. No, that was okay, so I'll try it again, Oh, I didn't like that time. So cause and effect and trial and error is pretty much how we learn. Sometimes we can learn by sharing stories and hearing stories of others so that we don't have to have the experience ourselves. For myself, I was raised in an alcoholic household, and even though I had that experience, I still experimented with drugs and alcohol as a young person. But luckily for me, I was able to identify that I preferred being present as opposed to being numbed. So for me, it was that life force that pushed me forward to make a conscious choice. It could have become a survival choice at some level had I continued in that path and continued to hang out with those people. Not bad people, by the way, just not the people that would have gotten me to where I wanted to go or what my soul wanted to do in this lifetime. So having now that experience and making those conscious choices, I'm even able to have wine here and there. However, I'm very conscious of whether or not I'm using that for numbing or for relaxation. Am I just chilling after a long week of work, or am I running from a mental emotional problem? Those beautiful things that have come into my life to support me having that level of reality check has truly been a blessing. That said, when my father completed suicide in 2008, I knew at that point that this was a challenge too big to handle on my own. Knowing that I came from that alcoholic numbing background, I needed to make some conscious choices. So I dumped all the alcohol in the house, I called the therapist for ongoing appointments, and I made a conscious choice to deal with the loss, the grief, and the unanswerable that comes with suicide head on, face first. I wasn't going to run, I wasn't going to hide, I wasn't going to numb. I was just going to go for it. Because I've learned in my life that facing your difficulties can be so much easier if you just walk through the fire. If I avoid the fire and then have to walk through it later, it always seems worse. I don't know why, but that's what I've learned from not only my own experience, but from the stories that my friends and fellow Unity people have shared. So that's why, in addition to the components that Brené Brown listed for us about resiliency, that's why I would add survival decision to the list of what is it that cultivates a resilient spirit. So the event of my dad's suicide, how that was handled throughout my family system, my mom, of course, well, she drank. And my brother, he ate to become 300 pounds. And I chose to use all the spiritual tools at my disposal. And it was like, I called all my friends and said, this is now the time where I need you to support me through this process. And I grieved. Messy emotions was my choice. That's not something that I think any of us would consciously choose, but in this circumstance, it absolutely had to be my survival decision. So what made me choose that choice? I don't think any of us would run into grief and loss willingly. But it had to be that choice because that life force within me was pushing me forward, was pushing me to make better choices, to be more resilient so that I could do whatever my soul's work is here on this planet at this time. So it was a pretty conscious decision. It was not fun. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't short. It sucked, actually. So years of what that grieving process is when you lose a loved one to some unforeseen tragedy, it just stops you in your tracks, and you need to find the resilience within to pick up and move on. So, surrendering, I asked for help in every avenue that I knew was available to me. And I received so much in this love and support and resiliency that was shared with me from others in my circle. Others stepped forward to share that they too had lost someone in this avenue. And I had no idea, and I've known some of these people for years. Because somehow there is shame attached to this death by suicide. And so I chose for both myself and my family that I was not going to fall prey to that shame. I was not going to claim self-hatred about my experience. I was going to use it and share my story and be willing to be brave so that others in the room can be empowered, can be blessed, and can look at their own lives and look for the blessing, look for the light, look for the love, because it's there. Namaste.